I want to tell you a story. All right, I have a lot of stories that I'd like to share, and this story is about FuncoLand. Now, if you're familiar with my YouTube channel, you should also be familiar with the fact that I have this FuncoLand tutorial video that was made in around 1998, and it's quite something. It reveals the game's process and why you were offered a cleaning kit and a magazine subscription and a terrible third-party controller every single time you shop there. And for me, FuncoLand is actually, it's the best high school job I ever had. It's the best high school job I think anyone could have ever had. And what a great time to have sort of a not too serious but totally awesome job in high school, working retail. So let me set the scene for you. It's 1998. I'm in high school, halfway through high school. I graduated in 2000. And I had been working at the library in our hometown. I was a page. It was my first job. And it was a good first job for me because I'm very neat, organized, somewhat obsessive compulsive on how things get organized. And it was very easy to learn the Dewey Decimal System and to shelve books and put things back in order and all that stuff. And that was a really fun first job, but I had to be quiet. And I had to have quiet fun, like rubber band fights or making Fujis out of folded up piece of paper and go. That's what we used to do to entertain ourselves. But anyways, I wanted to have a cool job, especially after I turned 16, because I remember I got the library job, I think, on a work permit when I was like 15. But once I turned 16, I definitely, 100%, if I was going to make a little extra cash in high school, still focus on school and everything else, I wanted to work at FuncoLand. And we had a strip mall near our home, in our hometown. And it was a Jewel, Osco grocery store. Next to it was a Subway. Next to the Subway was FuncoLand. And then directly next to FuncoLand was the Old Country Buffet. So, there were a lot of people that went into this FuncoLand right when they were done eating at either Subway or Old Country Buffet. And Old Country Buffet brought some interesting characters through, taking advantage of the all-you-can-eat buffet business and having a family of multiple kids just funnel into FuncoLand because we had demo stations of video games set up, and you could ask to try out pretty much anything, and it was a pretty lenient policy once upon a time in terms of just being able to kind of walk in and treat it like an arcade. But anyways, I was able to get the job because I had a friend who was a little bit older than me in high school, and he worked there, and he was graduating and going to college, and he put in a word for me, and I was able to basically get this job through him, which was incredible because I was able to get my dream job. It lined up, and I remember when we were training, like some of the first things I learned in training at FuncoLand was how to properly wrap cables for controllers, like NES controllers, Super Nintendo controllers. And they taught us to wrap the cable around our thumb and our pinky and just kind of go like that and then wrap it and kind of loop it through, and still do that today. It's just funny, I learned that there. It was a valuable skill of keeping your controllers for your retro video game consoles nice and tidy. And then it was all about, cigarette breaks and stuff like that. Kind of seeing how the managers that were running FuncoLand, a little bit older than me, and how they kind of ran the ship, and I wanted to be cool like them. And so anyways, I got started, and I got comfortable with this process of selling cleaning kits and doing conversational selling. And we were commission based at FuncoLand, earning very little money per hour, but every single time we sold a cleaning kit, it was like an extra $2.50 that we earned for that transaction. And we used to look at percentages on a computer screen in the back of the store that would have our stats for the day. Out of all the total sales that we had, how many of them, what percentage of them did you sell a cleaning kit, what percentage of them did you sell a magazine subscription, and what percentage of them did you sell a third-party controller. And if you were going to have a good day working at FuncoLand, every single one of your transactions would have had all three. And that was how you made the most money working in retail here. And it was all done through conversational selling. So as a FuncoLand employee, when a customer would come in, and preferably not the family that came in from Old Country Buffet just to play our free video games for an hour after dinner, it was all conversational selling. And it was finding out what kind of games they were into and what their level of knowledge was in terms of those games. And ultimately, the weak spot in everybody was system maintenance and game maintenance. And we would basically walk people through already having a rapport based on like understanding what kind of games they were into and, well, how are you cleaning your games? And they'd say, what? I didn't even know I was supposed to clean my games. And then we'd walk them through the whole, like, well, here, let me show you how it works. So I would give them a demonstration of literally just putting alcohol dabs on a little cotton piece connected to plastic and how to rub the contacts and how to clean out the system, and voila. And then it was like, if you get the cleaning kit, you also get a 90-day warranty on all stuff that you purchase here. Or no, your 90-day warranty was upgraded to a year. That's what it was. And then it just got better if you decided to get the Game Informer subscription as well, the FuncoLand publication, because that'll keep you up to date in games and what to buy and all, you know. And then there was the, well, you're playing 2-player, or just a 4-player game, you need another controller. Check out Mad Catz. These terrible Mad Catz controllers. God, it was like... Anyways, I worked at FuncoLand when the gold cartridge for Zelda 64 came out. I remember the craze to get that gold cart for all the people that pre-ordered, and I remember really not even caring at first. I didn't care about it, and I think until I saw the hype. I was eventually able to get a gold cartridge. Not on day one, though. There are a lot of things I remember about FuncoLand, but first of all, it's just kind of this general sense of FuncoLand. So it's like, I worked there for maybe a year and a half between 1998 and 1999 is when I was at FuncoLand. Maybe I went all the way till 2000, I'm not sure, but it was the end of the 90s, N64, PlayStation, yeah, like that time period, like there was just, I had 7 managers. I had 7 different managers while working at FuncoLand for that short period of time, like just, a year and a half, 2 years at most. 7 different managers. So it's like a rotating door of people coming through. And the people that ran FuncoLand were either one personality type or the other. They were either really, really strict on like company policy, like we need to clean the countertops and vacuum, and it was all about like wiping down the smudges off the door and all that stuff. And then the other type of managers just like didn't care and were just kind of chill, and were like, let's just hang out and play games when no one's in the store, and just kind of a very lenient policy. And there were more lenient policy managers than strict managers, at least in the location I was working at and kind of how it was. And I'll never forget some of the characters that worked there with me. When I first started working, one of the assistant managers was like an opera singer, and he was also a pothead, and he had a whole system of like closing the store for 5 minutes, going in the back, and ripping some metal pipe that had a little closed door contraption to kind of contain the smoke, and he would, do his thing and then come back out, reopen the store, and be business as usual, and then doing some operatic singing. He was an interesting character. And then, we had this Subway that was right next to this FuncoLand. And I also remember one of the people that I worked with was doing like double duty. He had a job at Subway and a job at FuncoLand. And his hours worked out where he just was like nonstop. He'd get off at a shift at Subway and then be doing the next shift at FuncoLand and vice versa. The interesting thing that came out of that was, well, a lot of things. One thing was getting kind of like the Subway hookup. Like we were kind of always able to get free sandwiches and drinks and chips and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. But then this really kind of neat thing happened once we started like getting into the routine of closing the store. Because when we closed the store, we had to do counts. And we had to count through all the system games and make sure they lined up with the numbers and the sales for the day. And this was all like by pencil, like on paper. And I swear, there were days where we were like under a game or over a game or whatever. I mean, there were definitely times I believe I probably took a game out like, oh, we're +1 for the day. I guess I'll go take Final Fantasy 3 for Super Nintendo. So our counts are even. That was not an everyday thing, but it definitely took place. I'm sure other FuncoLand employees can attest to the same thing during that time, especially if you had a more lenient manager who was just kind of like, the counts, like whatever, like let's just get out of here. But this other assistant manager, like I was talking about, who worked at Subway as well, during the closing of the store routine, we kind of got into this thing where I don't know how it started, but we would have Subway cups all the time for like the drinks and stuff like that. But when we'd close, because the Jewel was right next to Subway, he would be often rolling over there and getting like a 6-pack of beer. And when it was like closing time, we were there like a half hour after the doors closed and locked and no one else is coming in, finishing up the counts before we get out of there. He'd just pour his beer into the Subway cup and, discard the bottle in the back, and he's just drinking a soft drink from Subway. And it was like this brilliant routine, because it was just like, man, we're closing FuncoLand, like just kind of chill, lenient policy. Maybe we'll play a game some more instead of like really like buckle down the counts. We're definitely not wiping the counters down and doing all that stuff unless we're being forced to do it by one of the not so friendly people who was a manager of FuncoLand at that time. So we're chilling, drinking beers. I'm 16, 17 years old, so this is like an awesome hookup, as long as it was safe and not too over the top. But that then ultimately led to some of the most creative FuncoLand endeavors that really helped, this teenage self of mine and his wild antics succeed. And, I remember what it was like, in high school in the late 90s, like if you were going to be at a party or something and there was going to be alcohol, or if you were like the one in charge of getting the alcohol, it was really scary to drive and have alcohol in your car. That was like the number one thing not to do, because that was like the zero tolerance. If you get pulled over and they find alcohol in your car, even if you didn't drink anything at all, you're just transporting it, it was like they would immediately revoke your driver's license. Definitely didn't want that happening. Driving cars was a very important thing in my hometown and my high school experience, and riding with people that when I didn't have my license on a Friday night, getting close, and then once I did have my license and eventually had my own car, it was, every weekend was driving around the cars and whatever. But I didn't like being the one who had to like transport the alcohol. It's nice if it was like at a party or whatever, and it was, and if I wasn't driving on it. But anyways, I had this relationship with this assistant manager at FuncoLand where I said, hey man, do you think you might be able to pick me up a 6-pack as well? Something. I had a girlfriend at the time who was really into Icehouse. Not a fan of Icehouse, but beer was beer when you're in high school. So I'd be like, give me a 6-pack of Icehouse. And then it was how do I transport this in my car? And one of the things we did at FuncoLand was whenever we got a used NES or Super Nintendo or PlayStation, N64, whatever the console was, when we resold that console after it was tested and cleaned and whatever, we would package it up in these FuncoLand boxes that were white, and had FuncoLand written, I think, in like navy blue on the sides. And we had a bunch of different stickers that were for each of the different console. Here was a sticker you'd put on if it was an NES, or here's a sticker you'd put on if it was PlayStation. And it would be like green, purple, or that kind of deal. And what we would do is we'd box the used console up in here, and we would affix one of those stickers on it, and we'd write down the serial number from the console and any other details about it, like right there. And then we would tape it shut, and then we would additionally, like with a marker, just so we didn't go in so close to just see that little label, we would write in big like what the console was, like NES. And these would just pile up in the back room or along the back wall inside FuncoLand. And and then if you wanted to buy an NES that was used at FuncoLand, you'd get one of these boxes that was already prepackaged that had the serial number on the outside. And we would scan it because they had a barcode as well. So we'd scan it, and that was how it went on the computer, and voila. So I got the idea of, man, if I'm going to be transporting alcohol in high school in my car, I should just box up the alcohol in one of these boxes and just pretend it was one of these used consoles. And so what I would do is I would do that, and I would label everything exactly as if it was a real console. And I would put a sticker on there that was for NES, and I would come up with a fake serial number. And I probably would write it like in the style of an NES serial number, not just random numbers. I mean, I would make it as legit as possible with the marker NES, tape it off, and I would just throw this in my trunk. And luckily, I was never pulled over. I never, had my car searched or anything. But I was confident that if I ever was pulled over and a cop searched my car, I'd be like, yeah, I have a Nintendo in my back, my back seat. I have a PlayStation. And I don't know, it might have been a little heavier, but the thing is, we had bubble wrap, so I don't know, I think I might have even taken the bottles like out of the container that they were purchased in, the little cardboard tray, and actually like individually wrapped all the bottles of beer in bubble wrap so they wouldn't clank around when they were inside of the box. And that system worked. Really good. I didn't do it that often, and it really wasn't really even for me. I was much more interested in the gangster close the store and smoke a bowl in the back of the store and then return to work, which we totally did. I mean, it was interesting. There were some other things I remember when I worked there. I remember witnessing an internet sting, which was very interesting. This was, again, 1998, a very different scene in terms of online chat rooms and AOLs and all that business. But some like pedophile was apparently chatting with an undercover police agent in some kind of setup to sting and bust someone. And coincidentally, this person was supposedly meeting some underage kid at this Starbucks that was right in front of the FuncoLand in the strip mall. And it was interesting because I remembered as they were setting up for the sting, the undercover police agents were like going into all the neighboring stores, so they had like eyes on this Starbucks from all different directions. And there was a guy who came in to FuncoLand and who was like kind of buddying up with us, and I know all about what was happening because he was telling us. It was just really interesting. And God, this guy, I remember this guy ended up they're walking us through, and like, they knew when he was coming. I remember, they knew what car he was driving, what his license plate was, and they were ready to bust this dude. And I remember when he was creeping into the parking lot, we're all like spectating from FuncoLand, probably got the customers involved with this operation as well. He's pulling in, and of course, he ends up parking right next to my car. I'm like, oh, great. And he gets out of the car and he walks slowly into Starbucks, and then I remember like everyone's on their walkie-talkies, and they're like, all right, go, all right, and everybody came. It's like Old Country Buffet, Subway. They all came in and they got this pedophile or whatever, handcuffs, and he's off. But it was so interesting because I remember like his car was still there, and I remember when I left my job for the day, I was like, should I key this guy's car? Should I key? Nah, I didn't do it. But it was, almost. But man, there were so many wild things there. So anyways, the key thing, the reason I'm talking about FuncoLand in the first place is because eventually I got access to this training video that they had produced that I ultimately uploaded to my YouTube channel here. And this was like mid FuncoLand term for me. So I had already been trained, and I had already like been working with different managers, and I was with a really chill, very lenient manager of the store when this video came through, and we were all just like laughing at it hysterically. Like, they're like, corporate wants us to watch this video, guys, like, brace yourselves. We popped it on, and we're all just dying laughing. It's hysterical. I mean, even back then, I mean, I mean, you watch it now, and it's it's so cheesy, but it was always cheesy, and it's, you know, reinforcing the process of conversational selling and how to sell the cleaning kits and all of that. So yeah, I mean, we watched it, made fun of it, and I ended up with the video in my hands because the manager who was working there at the time didn't care. I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of other FuncoLands that got this same video, and if they had one of the, like, make sure you're wiping down the counters and wiping the, you know, smudges off the front door at closing time, they probably, like, had their employees watch that video and return the video right to corporate, and just, like, kind of did it like that. But not in the FuncoLand that I was working at, and I was like, this is hilarious, like, can I have this? I probably asked for it, and I probably was told sure. Because I eventually had it, and it was just something I held on to for a long time. So when I started my YouTube channel and was really excited about uploading all of these 80s and 90s commercials from my home VHS tapes as a kid, I was really excited to have a place to put this FuncoLand video as well. And that was one of the early videos that I'd uploaded to my channel as well. And I remember it was the first one that I had that was long, because it wasn't a commercial. It was an actual training video. And at the time, I think with my YouTube account, I wasn't able to put up a video that was longer than 10 minutes, or some restriction like that. And I think the instructional video was like 15, maybe 20 minutes. So I had to cut it in half, and that's why I uploaded it as part 1 and part 2, because that was the limitation, and that was the only way I was able to share it. And then I remembered, like, one day, all of a sudden, I started seeing, like, a lot of people were watching this, and a lot of people were commenting on it, significantly more than any of my other mashup videos or just, you know, random commercials that I had uploaded from my tapes. And I was excited. I was like, oh my gosh, people are actually watching this video. And then I saw it was reposted in some other articles. I don't remember where it was talked about online, but it was like the first time people had seen this, and no one else had posted it. And I don't know if anyone else has this training video still. Sure. But that's why I posted it, when I posted it, early 2010s. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading everybody's comments. I haven't replied to anybody in the comment boards. One thing I've been not so good at on my YouTube channel. I want to do more, but I'm always looking, and I'm always like really happy to see people having memories and riffing on the same ideas that I'm presenting. And it's been cool to see this sort of conversation thread about the FuncoLand days, because I mean, it's a very 90s thing, and it eventually became GameStop, and it will probably die at some point in the near future. But you know, when FuncoLand first started on there, I mean, that first commercial with the hand that pops out of the TV with a, you know, fistful of cash. We give you we give you money for your games. It'd be nice. We give you games for your games. No, there's like, they really illustrated the, you're getting money and we're taking your games. But that's, I guess, one other last thing I can share about FuncoLand was the intake process was super cool if you were working there, because you kind of had the opportunity to, if there was someone trading something in that you wanted, you had the opportunity to sometimes work something out before it went into the system. You weren't supposed to do that, but once again, if you had the lenient managers kind of letting it be a free-for-all, yeah, sometimes you got like a really good deal getting some stuff just for cash, like on the side right then and there, and we would look out for things for each other, and that's the last story. So I remember one of the last things I wanted to get was before I quit or before I left. I don't remember if I was fired or I quit. I remember towards the end it was whittled down. So I was like working 1 day a week. I was working like every Sunday, and it was so cool that the manager at the time like let me do that. Let an employee stay on the payroll 1 day a week. But then someone else came in and was like, "What are you doing? We gotta let this guy go and have like This is, so I think was my departure. But before that happened, one of the last things I was kind of like seeking was a top loader NES, because they rarely came through, and I really wanted one complete in box, which would be totally cool. But it never really happened. And so I had my friends working there with me, kind of on watch, and I'll never forget, there was this one day I was feeling really down. I think I had just broken up with my girlfriend, who really liked Icehouse and had me do the bubble wrap Icehouse Nintendo box routine to make happen. We had broken up and I was really kind of sad about it, and I remember I was wandering around at this mall in the food court, and it was kind of empty, and I remember seeing some other woman walk past me that had sort of a distinct look. It was very like dark features, dark hair, dark clothes. I didn't even really see her face. Maybe her hair was blocking it, but it was just like, it was enough to notice like, oh, this, like, I don't know if she was like gothic or it had like a actual vibe style. It's just one of these people that walks past you and you're aware of it, and it was just like this moment, and I was like feeling lost, I guess. And I'm telling you this because then like moments later, I think the exact same thing happened again, and it didn't feel like I was seeing this person again in the mall. It was as if I was walking the exact same footsteps in the food court with the exact same person walking past me, and it was like I just had deja vu. It really, really felt like was in the Matrix and I had a repetition. And right then and there, I got a call on my late 90s cell phone from my friend at FuncoLand, and was like, "You'll never believe this. A top loader just came in. It's in perfect condition. It's complete in box, and it's waiting here for you." It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to have that timing. I have a lot of stories that have timing like that as part of why they were good memories and good experiences, or bad experiences for that matter too. But anyways, getting the call about the top loader NES definitely cheered me up a lot, and it was nice to go pick that up, and I still have that today. And I know it doesn't have AV out. I know it's not the best Nintendo experience you can have, but I have that memory, and it's tied to FuncoLand. I have so many things that are tied to FuncoLand. I'll probably talk more about FuncoLand, but I wanted to at least paint some context of, yes, I did work there. I worked there at a really fun time to work there. There were a lot of cool video game releases games I still really like to play now that were released during that time, and I have nothing but fond memories, and it was really the best high school job I could have ever had. Believe it or not, I did homework too there. I wasn't just playing games. It was also, I was very aware of, this is a chill, lenient job, and they're going to allow me some flexibility and some extra time. I may as well get some of my homework done. And I would do that off to the side and then try to sell someone else a cleaning kit. I was very metal at this time in terms of my dress. I used to wear metal long sleeve shirts all the time, and I would just throw my FuncoLand shirt right over it, and I would still have the sleeves, and it would, I'd have like Cannibal Corpse sleeves and a FuncoLand shirt, and like, that was cool. No one minded. I still was able to sell cleaning kits to people that came through. I ended up building a relationship with a family that wanted me to babysit for their kids, because they loved how I engaged with them about video games at FuncoLand. They got my number, and I babysat for them. All different types of things happened when I worked at FuncoLand. And I kind of missed it in a lot of ways. It would be so great to go back there and get a whole bunch of Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt carts for a penny or 25 cents. I think they would pay you a penny if you traded it in, and then they resold it for 25 cents. You know, if you bought 1,000 back then, you could make a pretty good profit on that now. Penny stocks. I don't think I ever saw stadium events while I was there. I don't think I understood anything about stadium events at the time. I didn't get into the hobby of collecting retro video games until much later, but I was into it when I worked there. I mean, most of my NES collection and Super Nintendo collection and PlayStation collection started, and Sega Genesis, started around that time. I had different iterations of systems growing up, having them, trading them in, getting something else. But, I definitely was bringing home stuff I really liked. And, and the best thing about FuncoLand was that the walls were just decorated with the original boxes for all these games. You had the Nintendo wall, the Super Nintendo wall, and it was like if you're buying a Super Nintendo game or a Nintendo game, you'd ask for it at the counter. If they had the cart, they had it back there, but then they'd say, check the wall, see if they have the box for it. And if they did, you got the box too. It didn't change the price or anything. Completely different. I mean, now you can sell box only, sell cart only. Like, sometimes the box is worth significantly more than the cart. Man, I mean, just like back then, if we could go in a time machine, I would just go into FuncoLand and just like take all the boxes off the wall. I mean, there were times you could probably go in and just be like, you guys have this box for this game I bought like a while ago. Like, can I just get the box? Like, sure. But yeah, that was super cool. That's how I got a lot of my early games and got them complete in box. I would just get them when we had everything, because I definitely was a completionist back then and still am now. And it's fun to complete things. Like, it's been fun to complete this story. I'm sure I got more FuncoLand stories. I got more stuff to share. Like, I still got the shirt I used to wear when I worked there, my name tag. I think I got the manual, because I scanned the manual and put it on my Rad Universe website. It was one of the first things I posted when I first created the website, because I saw people actually were interested in FuncoLand and this context. So here it is, FuncoLand, late 90s, really cool, really fun place to be as a high school student. Peace.